easier to start your own business, to offer your services. Of course, you will have to get the different certifications that you need and registrations, but it's relatively easier to start your own business. Who do longer shifts, there are people who start at 6 a.m. and finish a bit earlier. So if you want a little bit of flexibility in that regard, you can go into it. It's safe compared to others, so it's not completely like, you know, roses, but it's safer compared to others. And that is hello everyone and welcome. My name is Kudzie Mapiye, and on this channel I do videos about my life living here in Australia, and I also share different life lessons that I've learned along the way. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 3 safe careers that you can come and do in Australia. So this is for all those people who are looking to come and work in Australia, or those people who are currently living in Australia and they're struggling to find work in different fields, and they want to find a safe career path where it's relatively easier to find work. And you know, for most immigrants that come to Australia, they come for the purposes of work. So it's really important for them to get work easily and not have to wait for too long. And when it comes to different countries, different careers work better. And in Australia, there are 3 safe career paths that you can take if you are an immigrant. And I have seen people, different immigrants, moving to Australia and changing their career paths to one of these 3. Even if they came doing something completely different, they might have struggled to get work, or they might have gotten work but they couldn't find the right amount of remuneration. They were not getting paid as much as they wanted to get paid, so they had to change careers. Now these 3 are things that, you know, you can acquire if you didn't have those technical expertise. Even before you came to Australia, you can come to Australia and acquire those skills and always change. You know, they say, there's this saying that, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, which means basically when you're in a certain environment, know what works for that environment and assimilate. And that's the case when it comes to careers in Australia. Now, the first career path that is safe in Australia and that I would recommend for immigrants is careers in the health sector. And I'm talking about careers in nursing or physiotherapy, ultrasound, anything to do with the health sector. Particularly nursing, because there are a lot of immigrants, particularly from Zimbabwe, who are nurses in Australia, and that is for good reason. Most of these people were not nurses when they were in Zimbabwe, and they were not nurses when they came to Australia. They were doing completely different professions, but they then changed to nursing because they find that, you know, there are not a lot of barriers to entry. It's not as hard to get into nursing compared to other careers. And not saying that it's not hard at all, but compared to other careers, nursing is relatively easier. The reason for this is there are more nurses needed per shift, and there are more shifts available. So there's usually a morning shift, an afternoon shift, a night shift. So they need many people, whether it's for a ward or particular area of nursing that they need. They will be hiring more people than in, for example, a corporate world where there's only one person or a couple of people doing that job, and they do it from 9 to 5. So you don't have to have a lot of people with that qualification at the same company. And the other thing about nursing is there is regional nursing, which is also very high paying. And there are now opportunities for people who work in larger cities to go and fly in and fly out of regional areas and do nursing, and then fly back into the city, and they can do like 2 weeks on or whatever, and whatever the schedule is for them. But there are people who do live in bigger cities like Brisbane who do travel to regional areas to offer their nursing services. So nursing is one of the safest career paths in Australia. And it's also highly remunerated, and there's a lot of pay in there because there's penalty rates. You work a variety of shifts and there are penalty rates for those shifts. So people find it quite lucrative. And the other thing is, if you have a family, like if you have a young family like myself, or you just want to be able to have better work-life balance, nursing might be a good option for you because of that shift work. If you've got kids, you can have times where you and your partner can work at different times. You don't have to work the same hours, like 9 to 5. The other person who's into a more flexible career like nursing can do an afternoon shift or a night shift, and that can allow for better care when it comes to kids and transporting kids to and from school and all those kind of things. So nursing is one of the safest career paths in Australia. The second safe career path in Australia, and I'm saying safe in quotation marks because it's safe compared to others. So it's not completely roses, but it's safer compared to others, and that is trades. One thing about Australia that I absolutely love is that they pay very well for their tradespeople. And I'm talking about carpenters, electricians, people who do metal work, those kind of trades, builders, plumbers, any kinds of trades. I'm from Zimbabwe, and in Zimbabwe, tradespeople don't get a lot of money. They're considered to be doing menial jobs, and they're actually kind of at the bottom when it comes to pay, which is quite unfortunate because they offer a good service. But in Australia, tradespeople are very highly paid. And if you live in Australia, you know that if you've ever had to call a tradesperson to your house to fix something, they really, really charge a lot of money. First of all, they have a call out fee. Just for them to call out, to come to your house, is almost $100 without even having to do anything. Just for them to arrive at your premises, they charge a lot of money, and then they will have a look around. And most of the times it's an easy fix, but we don't have the technical expertise, so we don't know. So sometimes they'll just come, flick a few buttons, and then they'll bill you $250 for less than 30 minutes of work. So trades are a really lucrative career in Australia. And I think it's also quite flexible when it comes to working hours as well, because they start pretty early in the morning. Most tradespeople will start at about 6 a.m. and finish by about 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. So that gives them a greater work-life balance, because they work the first half of the first half of the day, and then they can have the later half of the day to do whatever they want, to be with their family or to get into whatever other activities that they want to do. And the good thing about trades work is that it's easier to start your own business, to offer your services. Of course, you will have to get the different certifications that you need and registrations, but it's relatively easier to start your own business if you're a tradesperson, because you can advertise your services and people can come directly to you. You can build your client base and you can work for a variety of clients, and it's easier to just sell your services that way. So trades are a really lucrative, safer alternative, safer career in Australia that is quite popular. And a good thing about Australian schools as well is they offer training in trades for kids, because there's some kids who don't want to pursue the academic path. They don't want to go to university, but they would want to go to a TAFE and learn a trade. So majority of high schools, both public and private in Australia, will offer that route to go and study trades while they're still in high school. And sometimes they even get out of high school with a certification and they can start work straight away. So that is very good if you have young kids as well who are good with their hands, or they don't want to pursue a more traditional academic path. They can always choose a trade and they can have a quite lucrative career ahead of them. They can get quite a lot of money, in excess of 6 figures. It's quite easy to get as a tradesperson if you are working in Australia. And the other career path that I wanted to talk about, which is the third safe career path, is careers in early education. Early education is very popular, I might say, in Australia because they have a very high turnover. A lot of people get into early education, but they don't pursue a long-term career in early education. So they have quite a high turnover. Like, for example, at my daughter's daycare, we always see different teachers like coming and leaving because they're getting other opportunities at other daycares, or they're pursuing another career path altogether. So it's easier to get into a career in early childhood, which is like daycares and kindergartens, like working with children from birth to about 5 years old. If you want to pursue that education path and if you've got a passion for education. And another thing that you can do if you're in early childhood, you can always transition and go into other more advanced areas like primary schools, high schools, and get those qualifications, but start in early childcare and get employment easier that way. And in my area where I live, there are so many daycares. Like I've lost count of how many daycare centers are, at around the areas that I live. There are like more than 7 daycare centers within a 10K radius of where I live, like way more than 7. So there are a lot of centers, there are a lot of young families. And another thing, if you are looking to get into early childhood, like early education, it's good to go into those newer suburban areas where there are new builds and younger families. It'll be easier for you to find work because the daycare centers are just sprouting everywhere, and they've got at least 100 children enrolled per center. So it's quite, it's easier to get into a career in early childhood. And they do have different shifts as well because they open from usually 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I know, like for my daughter's daycare, there are people who do shorter shifts, there are people who do longer shifts, there are people who start at 6 a.m. and finish a bit earlier. So if you want a little bit of flexibility in that regard, you can go into early childhood. And again, the barriers to entry are not a lot, which means you don't need a lot of qualifications to be able to start work. There are quite a lot of kids, they won't be kids anymore. They're like young adults who leave high school and go straight into a career in early childhood because they just need a certificate that doesn't take them very long to acquire, and they go straight into work and they're employed. So, those 3 careers are ones that I really wanted to highlight for immigrants that you can get into and get work relatively easier and have that ability to have a better work-life balance. And of course, they is a lot of money, with the exception of maybe early childhood. It pays okay, but not as good as nursing and the trades, for example, but you will get, quite a decent income from early childhood. So yeah, if you're considering, if you're wondering what should I come and study in Australia, or you've got another qualification and say, okay, is this going to be useful in Australia? Can I get a job easily? You can always change. If you come and you see that it's not working out, don't stick to something that's not working. You can always change and pick a safer career path, because at the end of the day, most people go to work, of course, for fulfillment, but in order to advance, to get an income in order to sustain themselves. So you want to be able to attain that, pretty easily and not have to struggle to get a job, and you want options. And with these careers that I've mentioned, it's also easier to move interstate. Like, for example, if you're living in Brisbane, if you're a nurse, if you're a tradesperson, if you're into early childhood, it's easier for you to then move to another area like Melbourne, Sydney, or whatever, and use those same qualifications and slot into that employment market quite easily. Especially, I'll highlight for trades and nursing, it's even easier, because for nurses, there are hospitals everywhere. In the regions, in the rural areas, in these big cities, there are hospitals pretty much everywhere. And for nursing and other medical related fields, it's relatively easier to be able to move around if you're that kind of person who doesn't want to be confined to one city and you want the flexibility to be able to move around. Try something related to the medical field. That will allow you, you know, that opportunity to be able to move into different areas. You can work rural even if you want, because there's quite a shortage of, you know, medical staff in rural areas, and there will be like paying a lot of money to get people coming in to offer those services. Yeah, so that's all from me, guys. I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments below. I always love to read your comments and interacting with you in the comment section. And if you want to have a deeper discussion, I've got my email also linked in the description box, so you can reach me via my email. All right, and I will see you in the next video.